So let's dive into it, and let's start with the 10 rules that you'll need to take with you in the woods. The first rule: you must be 100% sure about the ID of a mushroom when collecting that for food or medicine. Don't be just 90% sure or 99% sure about the ID. You have to be 100% sure. With mushrooms, you don't play. That's for sure. So just in case that you're going to collect a mushroom that you're not sure about, and if you intend to identify it later on the day because you have several field guides at home, for example, and you want to look it up, then pick it up and collect it and identify it later on at home. But don't use it, don't mess around with it. Actually, I met some people in my life that they weren't sure about the IDs of their mushrooms, and they were like, yeah, I'm going to try it even so. Well, don't even mess around with that idea. Okay, the second rule: keep it narrow. Just start by picking 1 to 3 kinds of mushrooms, and gradually in time, once you learn about some other ones, you can add another one and another one and another one, and you can build a kind of pool of mushrooms that you are familiar with. You know them, you collect them in the woods, and you can stick with those. Don't mess around with some other ones that you don't know about. So I would encourage you to start with 1 mushroom at first, for example the turkey tail, because it doesn't have poisonous lookalikes, and not even the lookalikes that it has. They're few, and they're not to be known. They're not known to be poisonous. So start with that, and then slowly you can add some other ones. Just make sure that you're going to ask about the opinion of some other people, and especially the opinion of 1 or several experts. That's very important. Rule number 3: know the poisonous mushrooms first, and this is very important. Once you learn those and you know them, then you can be sure that what you're collecting, it's not poisonous. Rule number 4: don't collect, consume, or use old mushroom fruit bodies. Why? Because even some of those old edible mushrooms, if they're old, they can cause some gastrointestinal upsets. So they're kind of going to turn into mild poisonous mushrooms, and yeah, it's better if you leave them there, you know. Rule number 5: don't collect, consume, or use young mushroom fruit bodies. So you have found a young mushroom in the woods, and it kind of looks like a honey mushroom, but in many cases you can confuse that with something else. So when the mushroom is young, it doesn't have all the characteristics that are needed for a clear ID. In that case, you just leave it there. Make sure that you pick only mature or nearly mature mushrooms and not young ones, unless you would see some other ones that are mature right next to it. But even so, you have to be very careful. Okay. Rule number 6: don't collect, consume, or use moldy mushroom fruit bodies. Molds like green molds, bluish green molds, and so on, they have aflatoxins. so those are deadly toxins, and you don't want those. So if you see moldy fruit bodies, just leave them there. I can tell you that many times turkey tail, for example, it can develop mold on the underneath, and you can see the mold, especially if the fruit body is going to dry up on the log, and then it's going to sit there for months and months. After it rains, you can see sometimes that the fruit bodies are taken over by mold. So just leave them there, don't use them, don't pick them. Pick only mushrooms in their active state of growth, fresh mushrooms. Rule number 7: don't eat raw mushrooms. So some of the mushrooms out there, they might be, even if they're edible, they can have mild toxins. I mean, they can have some toxins in them, so you have to cook them, and only then you can eat them. This is an example. It's the honey mushroom, for example. You have to boil the mushroom in order to eat that or to cook it. You're supposed not to eat that raw. Is the same valid idea with shiitake, for example. That's a cultivated one, but definitely when it's about wild mushrooms, there are a lot of mushrooms that you should not eat raw. Rule number 8: boil the fleshy mushrooms you collect and dump the water. And this is very important for beginners to know. This is a safety measure. Actually, you collected mushrooms, they're fleshy mushrooms, and when you take them home, you want to eat them and all of that, but first boil them for a half an hour and then dump the water, and then you can use the fruit bodies. This is a rule just in case that you collected something which is not it's not edible, or maybe it has some kind of poisonous feeling to it, then this is going to be safety measure against that. Once you start to be familiar with them and you know what you're doing, then you can skip this step. But for beginners, this is very important. And also, as I told you, there are some mushrooms like the honey mushroom that you have to use this method all the time. Even me, if I'm collecting mushrooms for all of my life, I'm still boiling the honey mushroom, for example. So rule number 9: don't consume mushrooms left in the fridge for more than 3 to 4 days. There are mushroom kinds that are spoiling very fast. So this is more like an analogy to rule number 4. Mushrooms should be used fresh. You know, once you collect them in the same day, you should prepare them, or in the second day, but not to leave them there for 3, 4, 5, 7 days in the fridge and then to start to cook them, because they will contaminate with a lot of bacteria and they will turn into mild poisonous mushrooms. So make sure that you're careful with this too. Rule number 10: when consuming for the first time a mushroom, start by eating just a small amount. Don't go for a full meal. You want to see what the reaction on your body is. Some people might have some allergies to a particular mushroom, so you need to take it easy and to try a bite or two from what you cook, and then to see what's the reaction of your body, how you feel about it, and if everything is fine, then the next time you can eat a lot more from that particular mushroom. Yeah, so these are the 10 rules. I hope it makes sense. Learn them well and keep them in your mind every time when you're going to go in the woods, so you know them. Here you have some pictures. This is a young fruit body here, number 1. I can really tell for sure what that could be. So that's why I told you that you need to look even more about the characteristics. When the fruit body gets mature, then you will know more exactly what it is. And then you have number 2, some old fruit body in there. If you see it that it looks like that, just leave it in there, don't mess around with it. With number 3, you have a moldy fruit body. If you see something like that, just leave it there, don't even touch it or pick it. And number 4, you have an old degraded fruit body. Now, especially in shelf fungi, you will see that they're attacked by larvae and by beetles. For example, this one here was attacked by beetles, so it has a lot of channels and a lot of diggings in there. So in that case, if you see that, just leave the fruit body on the tree there. In fleshy fungi, you have maggots, and a good rule is to cut the fruit body in half before you pick it. And just make sure that it doesn't have maggots. There are some mushroom species that they have a lot of maggots, like the porcinis, for example. So you don't want to take maggoty mushrooms with you at home, you know, and then to discover that they're packed with those. So yeah. And this is the old honey mushroom. It's pretty much this long stems, fibers. This is how it looks. We're not going to collect them, you know. These are too little, too small to be collected. Yeesh, look at that. Get out of here.